Hi guys, I'm Yasmin and today I will be talking to JJ about pragmatic AI. So just to start off, what is pragmatic AI?
Pragmatic AI isn't a thing per se. Pragmatic approach to AI is what we've called a desire to cut out all of the hype from the actual good stuff. Because everybody who is in any way online or is any way up to date with technology, sees all of the stuff that's going on. A lot of companies are really confused about what stuff's really good and what's actually just not quite there yet and all of that kind of thing. But everybody's very aware of the potential for AI to massively disrupt so many sectors and make such a huge impact on businesses, right? How they operate and kind of what even the products that they produce and the interactions they have with consumers, all of those kind of things. So it has all that potential, but nobody or very few people really know how to get started. So what we wanted to do is say, here's the kind of simplest way to allow you to get started.
So you had quite a few interesting speakers that came to participate on your...
We did. It was really good. We were really lucky because we had someone that we've talked to a lot over the years, Alex Jules from Google, who works in AI at Google. So, really, really important position in the industry and an amazing voice to have at the table. So I was really, really excited about that. We also had Alistair Brown and Stephen Koya. Alistair is a generative AI consultant. So he's a specialist in the AI sector on both the leading edge of the technology, but also how you implement it into businesses. We had Stephen Koya as well from a company called VKY Automation that also does similar things in terms of how do you use AI to get insight out of data and really transform your business. So like some really, really interesting people at the table. And obviously we were able to talk about what Equator's doing in the AI space and how we're developing our services, both in terms of how we work and also what we can deliver to our clients.
And were you seeing a difference in their perception on AI?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a huge spread of difference of opinion in terms of from negative to positive. So some people are much more wary and some people are much more sort of bullish on it. So on the one hand, you've got Alex, who's very future focused and understands the kind of like the cutting edge, and the other guys who also understand the cutting edge, but are much more about how do we use that, in a day-to-day world. But the thing I think is really interesting is that there's this sort of FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt that surrounds AI, which is crazy. You hear it all the time. AI is going to take our jobs, or it's going to make a mistake that costs a lot of money, and all these kind of things. And I think all of that worry kind of shields us, in a sense, from being scared of what it actually is going to do. The actual power that technology has to really transform how we work, or indeed whether we have a job.
Fair enough. Do you think that AI will disrupt some industries more than others then, like the financial industry?
Yeah, I think it will. I think it absolutely will. I mean, it's already disrupting some more than others. I think that there's an interesting space, but it's less about the industry per se and more about what AI can do in the short term. So one of the things that obviously a lot of people are talking about is LLMs, which large language models, which is really hard to say when you're trying not to stutter. Large language models, which is about, in a sense, doing smart chatbots like ChatGPT that we're all used to, but in a secure way, trained on company-specific information for a specific audience. So that's one of the main focuses. So you think, well, okay, so where is that going to be deployed most readily? And so I think any company that has a kind of advanced customer servicing element to it and a desire to scale a kind of human approach, it's going to be really at the heart of that. So, one of the companies that we're working with is a company that is a network of IFAs, for example. So IFAs are an audience where they've got a huge amount of regulation going on, but they also have traditionally been a very person-to-person type thing. But those companies therefore struggle to scale. Whereas with AI, some of those easier, repetitive conversations can be dealt with in a way that feels human and feels supportive and helpful, but without actually requiring a person there all the time. So there are elements of financial services and others that will be disrupted much more quickly. But the interesting thing is that financial services have that additional challenge of getting over the risks associated with it and the worry that's associated with implementing AI, right? Like there's a huge amount of fear about data leakage, about hallucinations and all of that kind of stuff. So I think they're actually the big financial services businesses are the ones that are most ripe for disruption, because it's going to be not very long before another sort of Monzo or Starling type bank comes along using that technology, because they're not on legacy systems, and they can just create a much better experience from the off.
Well, do you think like decision makers are starting to see like the opportunities in AI, and do you think there's like negative implications or more positive implications, and should they actually introduce it into their business models?
So what I would say is there are negatives, because it's early days. The technology is, as a lot of people say, it's the worst it's ever going to be.
Yeah.
And there are barriers to it. But what I think is important, and what we're trying to do with the paper that we've created, is to say you need to start thinking about it now, because it's moving so fast. If you start to sort of say, what's the panacea for how it should be operating in our business right now, then by the time you've defined that, it's going to have moved on so much that looks different, right? So if you don't just adopt and change accordingly in an agile way, then you're going to miss out.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important that people avoid saying what is the potential in the future, and say, how do I make the most of it now? How do I get value now?
Yeah.
And then how do I grow with it? I mean, everybody that we talk to, you know this, right? Everybody that we talk to from a client point of view, we're always talking about agility, data-driven evolution, all of that kind of stuff. And that's because in digital, things just change so fast. And you need to have that built into your business. So the businesses we're talking to, it's like, yeah, you can do an LLM now, but if you haven't got the, if you like, flywheel of continual evolution, then you're going to struggle, because it's going to be out of date. Are you training it on new information? Are you upgrading it to the latest technology, and so on and so forth? So I think it's a challenging space, I think. And I think that the small steps are the important ones. So, like, can I introduce it? Can I introduce or replace the, terrible chat interface that some marketing suites who will remain unnamed give you, with a smart chatbot that maybe operates in concert with my navigation on my website, so that if people can't find something, they can just chat with it, that kind of thing, and implement, guardrails, like, if the person asks to speak to someone real, then it can hand you off. So really simple steps like that just start you down that road and start you to understand it. I think that's where the change comes, rather than big stuff.
Yeah, and from a legislation point of view, because AI is quite new, should businesses be scared, or would that be?
They need to be wary. Absolutely need to be wary. I think you need to take a call on kind of how safe or unsafe the data is, how safe or unsafe the user is, before you kind of get started. Because, if you've got people putting sensitive data in it, a lot of times the data is used for training sets for other models. So that's potentially a risk for people. And with vulnerable users, you don't want to put them in front of something that could come up with hokey information.
Yeah. Do you think there's a limit of how far you should go, though? Do you not lose the humane side of it all? How would that influence?
I think that the human versus computer thing, I think, is so interesting to me. As a creative person, I find that fascinating, and I think I don't know where the edges of it are. I'm fascinated to find out the edges of it, because I think there are loads of brilliant creators using AI-based tools to do amazing things. Right, like actually using it as a paintbrush, right? Actually using it in a creative way. But there are also way more people using it in a very uncreative way, and using it in a way that replaces illustrators and photographers and designers and so on and so forth. I mean, at the level it's at the moment, it kind of replaces bad stock photography from an image point of view, but it's going to get there. So I think that it's a sort of it's a problematic space. It requires, on the one hand, creatives to kind of move quickly and to some extent adopt it, and sort of experiment and find out what you can do with it. And so that the result being human in itself, because it's got the concepts are human. And then the other one is, from a kind of human point of view, it's remembering that things created by people still have more value than things generated by a mechanism that is essentially taking the information on the internet and kind of playing it back to you in a different way, different order.
So you've recently published a white paper on the topic. What are the key takeaways that someone watching this video could get from them?
We did the report and we've also done the video. Now the video is more of an interview with and a discussion between all of those experts that I mentioned earlier, so Alex and Stephen and Alistair. And that's great because it's a conversational thing and you get to hear kind of their thoughts and really discuss the challenges. With the report, what we wanted to do is to then, if you like, squeeze the juice out of it. So really try and get down to the kind of, these are the tips that you can take on and act on today. So, how do you define where you want to go? How do you understand kind of where you are at the moment, where your business is at the moment in terms of its ability to adopt AI? And how do you create a kind of agile loop where you're monitoring effectiveness and then upgrading and changing accordingly? There's lots of elements like that you can just put into place. I think the type of AI that we're using at the moment, this large language model type technology, should be considered more like Windows rather than a specific application within Windows. Mm-hmm. So, you've got devices like the Rabbit R1 that came out of CES this year, which is like a mobile phone, but it's chat-based, and you can just talk to it. And it's, I think they called it a large action model rather than a large language model. So the idea is that it's about you talk to it and it can actually go and do things. So it can interact with your apps and so on and so forth. So you're less looking at a screen and scrolling and more chatting. Yeah. And to me, that's fascinating because I remember when the iPhone came out, and it was one of the things that was most amazing about it was the fact that you could go from phones with lots of buttons and a massive manual to a phone that you could just pick up and use it straight away, and it could do a lot more. So the interface was allowing you to do a lot more without any real technical training. And this technology does the same thing. Because what this does, if you imagine a phone that is a large, or the equivalent of a phone that's more of a large action model, you don't have any manual, you don't have anything, you can ask it what it can do. Yeah. So you can just say, well, you don't have to go looking for how to figure out how to do something, you just say, well, how do I do X, Y, Z? I think there's a huge amount of kind of interesting, next steps to explore there. And so then when you think about that, what does that mean for a brand or a business? It means that people are going to want to interact with you in a very different way. So in the past where, we moved from physical shops, which closed at 5 o'clock and you couldn't do your shopping if you didn't get there in time. Now it's weird if you can't do the thing you want to do out of hours, both in terms of shopping and in terms of interacting with any business. So that's now driving that change. And if there is a drive to be able to interact with businesses and just chat in any way you want, whenever you want, then it's going to be very, very frustrating when there's a business that isn't able to deliver that, right?
So the tip of the day is baby steps.
Baby steps, totally, baby steps. I think it's so big, so overwhelming, and so difficult that if you can sort of say, as a priority, I need to free my team and inspire my team, right? So I need to set the guardrails for my team. I need to decide what the tools are, what the rules of the game are, so that they know what they're not supposed to do, what they can do, so they don't feel that someone's going to come and shout at them something. We get all of that in place and then have a program of implementation, say, like, where is AI going to add value in my business? Then you're golden. Well, listen, thank you. No, really, really good. Thank you so much. I hope everybody who's watched this and taken the time to get this far has enjoyed it. And hopefully we'll come back with another video soon. We might even do a regular thing on this kind of podcast channel.